September 20, 1940, Palazzo Venezia, Rome. Morning light struggles through the tall, heavy windows of Benito Mussolini's office. The skies over Rome are a pale, uncertain gray, an omen that no one inside the building dares mention. The air is warm, almost suffocating, thick with the scent of polished wood, old paper, and the lingering smoke of Mussolini's ever-present cigarettes. A courier stands at attention, boots clicking together, face drained of color. In his hands, freshly decoded dispatches from North Africa. At the center of the room, beneath the towering maps of the Mediterranean, Benito Mussolini sits behind his massive desk, the lamp's glow casting deep shadows across his eyes. He leans forward, elbows braced, jaw clenched. His fingers drum once against the wood, then stop. The message is clear, brutally clear. Italy's grand invasion of Egypt, his bold attempt to prove Fascist Italy's military might, has collapsed. Graziani's 10th Army stalled, supplies disorganized, morale broken, British counter-patrols striking back harder than expected. The easy victory he promised the Italian people has evaporated in the desert heat. Outside the office, Rome hums with propaganda confidence, headlines boasting of Italian strength, of imminent triumphs. But inside, the atmosphere is entirely different. Officers exchange anxious glances. No one speaks unless spoken to. A single question hangs in the air, unspoken yet inescapable. What will Mussolini say now that his first major independent war gamble has failed? The Duce rises slowly, shoulders rigid, fists tightening at his sides. His expression is unreadable, somewhere between fury, disbelief, and a dawning realization that the myth of Italian invincibility is slipping away. He steps toward the window, staring out over the city he has promised glory. His voice, when it finally comes, is low, tense, and edged with something rarely heard from the Duce. So this is how it begins. By the summer of 1940, Europe is engulfed in flames. France has fallen. Britain stands alone against Hitler's expanding Third Reich. For Benito Mussolini, Italy's moment of glory seems imminent, or so he believes. The Duce, long frustrated by Italy's secondary role in Europe, sees an opportunity to assert fascist power. He envisions a swift conquest of British-held Egypt, a foothold that would secure the Mediterranean and allow Italy to claim the spoils of colonial expansion. Yet beneath this ambition lies a dangerous hubris. The Italian military, stretched thin and plagued by logistical shortcomings, is not prepared for a true offensive in the unforgiving North African desert. Mussolini's plan relies on the 10th Army, commanded by Marshal Rodolfo Graziani, a man of cautious temperament but limited resources. Graziani inherits a force ill-equipped for the vast desert, tanks outdated and prone to mechanical failure, supply lines tenuous and exposed, and a mix of untested Italian units alongside North African colonial troops. Air support is patchy, coordination with the Italian Navy uncertain. Intelligence on British defenses is incomplete, often reliant on outdated maps and intercepted communications that tell only part of the story. In early September 1940, Mussolini convenes a series of meetings at Palazzo Venezia. Officers outline the operation, an advance across Libya into Egypt, seizing the Suez Canal and cutting off British influence in the region. Enthusiasm masks reality. Mussolini, impatient and confident, presses for immediate action, ignoring the reservations of his generals. His famous declaration reverberates through the halls. It is not a question of whether we can do it. It is a question of when we will triumph. Across the Mediterranean, British commanders take notice. General Archibald Wavell, commanding the Western Desert Force, understands the opportunity presented by Italian overconfidence. His units, though smaller, are better trained, equipped with modern tanks, and accustomed to desert warfare. British intelligence intercepts reports of Italian disorganization, feeding a sense of cautious optimism that the Italian offensive can and will be repelled. As September progresses, Italian forces cross into Egypt. Early movements are slow. Supply convoys falter in the desert sand. Local commanders voice concerns over overextension and vulnerability to counterattacks, yet Mussolini's insistence on speed and spectacle leaves little room for caution. Morale is uneven. Some troops march with the conviction of conquest. Others already feel the heat of a campaign that is far harsher than promised. Meanwhile, the Duce faces internal pressure. Fascist propaganda frames the operation as inevitable victory. Newspapers in Rome trumpet Italy's might, portraying the desert campaign as a testament to the nation's renewed strength. Yet within military circles, whispers of doubt circulate. Reports of mechanical failures, skirmishes with British forces, and stalled advances begin to arrive with increasing urgency. The stage is set for a confrontation not just on the sands of Egypt, but between ambition and reality. Mussolini's gamble is about to collide with the limits of Italian military power, and the 10th Army's slow unraveling will force him to confront questions he had never truly asked himself. How will a leader respond when the illusion of invincibility shatters? September 20th, 1940, Palazzo Venezia, Rome. The 10th Army's reports lie before Mussolini like a trail of unbroken warnings. Graziani's dispatches are careful, clinical, but the message is unmistakable. The invasion of Egypt has stalled, supplies are dwindling, and British counterattacks have forced Italian units into defensive positions. The desert, which Mussolini imagined as a stage for triumph, has become a mirror of Italian unpreparedness. Mussolini's generals wait in silence. General Ugo Cavallero, chief of the Italian General Staff, shifts uneasily, aware that any hint of hesitation could be construed as failure. Officers glance at each other, noting the Duce's rigid posture, his sharp gaze fixed on the map sprawled across the desk. Smoke curls from his cigarette, curling into the tense stillness of the room. Finally, Mussolini speaks. His voice is low, deliberate, carrying the weight of authority, but tinged with an uncharacteristic edge of tension. "So this is how it begins," he says. The words are not a surrender nor a command. They are a recognition, acknowledgement of the reality the Duce has long resisted. For a brief moment, the room breathes, as if the collective tension can finally be measured in the quiet between syllables. Cavallero attempts a response, measured and cautious. Il Duce, the forces can regroup a temporary setback. Mussolini interrupts, his hand slicing the air. Temporary? Temporary is a word for victory we have yet to earn. The British are not waiting. The desert is unforgiving. Every hour we delay is a gift to them. Witnesses recall that his face is rigid, lips pressed into a thin line, eyes scanning the room as though daring one of his generals to contradict him. There is no anger, only a stark clarity. In this moment, Mussolini realizes the limits of his authority over the battlefield, his vision colliding with the unforgiving reality of war. Behind closed doors, aides note the Duce's hands tremble slightly as he points to the forward positions in Egypt. The gesture is small, almost imperceptible, yet it signals an internal reckoning. The illusion of easy conquest has ended. Outside Rome, Mussolini's public persona remains unchanged. Fascist newspapers continue to herald Italy's might. But within Palazzo Venezia, the Duce has confronted a truth he cannot ignore. Ambition alone cannot command the desert, nor the courage of men unprepared for its trials. The collapse of the Italian advance into Egypt sends shockwaves through every level of command. In the 10th Army's desert encampments, officers scramble to reorganize supply lines. Fuel shortages halt tanks mid-desert, while communication breakdowns leave forward units isolated. Soldiers, marching under the unrelenting sun, begin to question not only their leadership but the very plan that brought them here. Morale teeters precariously. Back in Rome, Mussolini convenes emergency meetings with his generals. He demands explanations, timelines, and contingency plans, yet the room is thick with tension. Cavallero, cautious and precise, warns that the 10th Army cannot sustain a prolonged engagement without immediate reinforcements. Graziani emphasizes the realities on the ground: desert terrain, mechanized limitations, and unexpected British resilience. Orders are issued, rewritten, and issued again. The Duce demands aggressive counteroffensives even as intelligence reports arrive of British preparations to exploit Italian weaknesses. Messengers travel night and day across the Mediterranean, bearing instructions that commanders struggle to implement. Meanwhile, British forces, observing the disarray, respond with precision. The Western Desert Force launches raids that test the overstretched Italian lines. Supply convoys are ambushed, forward positions are harassed. Each setback underscores the stark contrast between Mussolini's projected image of invincibility and the unfolding reality in the desert. In private communications, Mussolini expresses a mix of disbelief and determination. Notes and diaries from aides suggest a Duce grappling with the gap between propaganda and fact, between the glory promised to the Italian people and the stark truth of military failure. For Rome's leadership, the realization is inescapable. The campaign cannot proceed without risk of catastrophic defeat. Propaganda, however, tells a different story. Newspapers continue to boast of Italian strength, portraying stalled advances as tactical maneuvers, while the public remains largely unaware of the true scope of the disaster. The duality, between reality in the field and the myth presented at home, creates tension among officers who must follow orders while managing an increasingly demoralized army. By the end of September, it is clear: the invasion of Egypt has stalled. Mussolini faces a moment of strategic reckoning. Every decision now carries heightened weight, for missteps in the desert could ripple far beyond North Africa, threatening Italy's standing in the Axis alliance and Mussolini's personal prestige. The failed Italian invasion of Egypt becomes more than a temporary setback. It exposes fundamental weaknesses in Italy's military and strategic planning. Mussolini's decision to launch an ambitious desert campaign without adequate preparation leaves lasting consequences, both for the North African theater and for the fascist regime's credibility. Historically, the collapse demonstrates the limits of Italian power independent of German support. The 10th Army's struggles emboldened British forces, allowing General Wavell to conduct counterattacks that destabilize Italian positions in Libya. Desert warfare, once underestimated by the Duce, reveals the vital importance of logistics, coordination, and mechanized mobility, lessons Italy had neglected in its haste to claim prestige. For Mussolini personally, the episode marks a turning point. While he publicly maintains the image of decisive leadership, insiders note a shift in his demeanor. Advisors report growing impatience and a tendency to micromanage campaigns from Rome, often disregarding field realities. His reliance on German support in subsequent operations becomes more pronounced, setting the stage for Italy's increasing dependence on the Third Reich as the war progresses. Modern historians view the Egypt campaign as a cautionary tale of overambition. Mussolini's misjudgment underscores the danger of political leaders pursuing military glory without realistic assessment of capabilities. The failure also reshapes the North African campaign. German forces under Rommel must intervene to stabilize the front, dramatically altering the balance of power and prolonging the conflict in the desert. The Italian public, initially shielded by propaganda, slowly confronts the limits of fascist promises. Reports of stalled advances, lost equipment, and retreating units erode confidence in Mussolini's leadership. Within military circles, the episode fosters a sobering awareness. Italian forces cannot operate effectively without careful planning, reliable supply lines, and competent coordination. Lessons learned only at great human and political cost. Ultimately, the failed invasion serves as a turning point in Italy's war effort, shaping strategic decisions for the remainder of World War II. It illustrates the consequences of hubris, the fragility of reputation built on image rather than capability, and the harsh realities that even powerful leaders must confront when ambition outruns preparation. The morning sun in Rome casts long shadows across Palazzo Venezia, as if echoing the long reach of Mussolini's ambitions and the weight of their failure. The invasion of Egypt, once envisioned as a triumph of fascist power, instead becomes a stark lesson in the limits of authority, planning, and human endurance. Mussolini's words that day, "So, this is how it begins," capture more than immediate frustration. They encapsulate a broader truth about leadership in war. Boldness and vision can inspire, but without preparation and realistic assessment, even the most powerful leader faces the unforgiving test of circumstance. The desert campaign's collapse ripples beyond the sands of North Africa. It reshapes Italy's military strategy, necessitates reliance on German intervention, and forces a nation to confront the gap between propaganda and reality. For the soldiers in the 10th Army, the experience is an introduction to the harshness of war, where courage and endurance collide with logistical failure and strategic misjudgment. In retrospect, the episode illustrates a timeless lesson. History is not made by intentions alone, but by the intersection of human ambition with the immutable realities of terrain, enemy capability, and circumstance. Mussolini's personal reckoning reminds us that leadership is tested not in moments of unchallenged authority, but when plans falter and decisions carry consequences far beyond the room in which they are made. For viewers today, the story of Italy's failed invasion of Egypt offers more than historical curiosity. It is a vivid study in the human element of warfare, the peril of overreach, and the sobering truths that leaders confront when ambition meets reality.